Hi class, this is Professor Barry Brennan. I am here to talk to my argumentation class. We'll be discussing issues in statistical evidence. Also, the lecture will be called Examining Statistical Evidence, but basically what we're going to be doing is looking at what kind of issues do we encounter while we're looking at statistical evidence in our research, and what kind of questions do you need to ask yourself when you are engaged in debate, right? Whether you're on the affirmative or negative, whether you're asserting certain statistics or whether your opponent is giving statistics, what kinds of questions do you need to ask yourself to interrogate that data? And let's go right to the PowerPoint. All right. Issues with statistical evidence. We're going to look at 10 different things. First, not everything can be put in a number, right? Not everything can be quantified. Some things can't be quantified. Can you quantify? Let's just take how honest are you? Can you say that you're 76% honest all the time? I mean, if we're to quantify that, let's say 76 out of 100 times that you say something, you're honest. That's basically what 76% means, right? So out of the 100 times that you make statements, 76 of those are true and the rest aren't. Think about that. 76% honest. Is that something that is quantifiable? And then the question is, let's ask this question. Let's just go with that idea. If we say we're 76% honest all the time, of that, let's see, that's 24. Of that other 20%, 24% that we're not honest, how do you know, if someone were to say that, which percentage are you getting? Is it 76% each day? Is it 76% in your lifetime? Is it 76% so far in your lifetime? What does that even mean? So some things are not quantifiable. Keep that in mind when you're doing your research and you're looking and asking questions. Is this quantifiable? Precise numbers are not necessarily better. So sometimes, now we're going to look at precise numbers versus statistics. If we were to give a number, especially in public speaking or in any kind of public speaking event, when you give large numbers like 1,362,533, well, I just said that. Can I say it again? 1,532,000 something something. I can't even remember what I just said. Why can't I remember? Because there's too many numbers. And nobody remembers that. What they hear is the first part, 1 million something. So this is when percentages really help us, like bring it down, because we can remember, just like it says 78.33% of the time, we can remember that. But if it's a long, big number, we can't remember that. And especially if you're giving the full amount, the numbers of things, 5,343 and 2,895, who's going to remember that? Better to give percentages. Sometimes they serve us much better if you're trying to get your point across in argument. You always have to ask too, in percentages and whenever numbers, is what is it out of, right? If you have decided to survey 5,000 people, let's just do this. 5,000 people, I'm going to give you an easy one. 2,500 people said yes and 2,500 people said no. So 50% said yes, 50% said no. Or 5,000 people, 3,500 people, I'm going to probably mess myself up right now, but let's say it's, I don't know what 5,000, and then I'm trying to think of it. Let's just take 1/5. So 1,000 people said yes, the other 4,000 said no. So if we're looking at that from percentages, so if we're going to quantify it, we could do it in fractions. 1/5 of the people, so 1,000 over 5,000, 1/5 of them said yes. The other 4/5, which equals 80%, right? Yeah, 80%. So 20% said yes, 80% said no. but you always want to know what's the total number they're pulling that percentage from. It's important. I'm probably going to be redundant. We're going to keep talking about this, but it's for you to start thinking about these percentages, because we love to use them in research, and you always have to ask yourself, well, what are they talking about? What's the total number that they're pulling from? And who did they take those statistics from? All right, moving along. I've got dogs in my house with me right now. How you doing, Cisco? Okay, surveys must be representative. So when you ask a survey, when you're trying to do a survey, or you're looking at a survey, even when you do a survey, they have to represent what you're talking about. Again, you have to ask who was surveyed. It can't be enough to say we surveyed all the residents in California. Well, who are the residents in California? And how many men were there and how many women? What's the race of those people? What's the economic status of them? What's the socioeconomic status, SES? What kind of education do they have? Where do they live? Is it Northern California, Southern California? Where did you predominantly get the survey from? All those factors are important. And when we're making, but again, here's the other thing. Those factors are important to interrogate that, unless we're just trying to make a general assumption or hypothesis about. We take a survey of the residents of California, and let's say there's 3 million residents. I don't know how many people live in California. I'm sure it's a lot more than that. Let's say it's 3 million residents, and we get 2.5 million, which would be amazing. Surveys back. So that means 500,000 haven't returned their surveys. You could probably make some good if 2.5 million surveys out of 3. You could probably make really some good prognoses on that, like hypothesize on that data. But those are the kinds of things you want to know when it's surveying. You want to make sure that there are residents of California. Like, what does the survey say? What questions do they ask? Okay, moving along. There are 3 types of averages. So a lot of times research and different articles, they like to say that this is an average. So what do they mean? Are they talking about a mean, a median, or a mode? And sometimes it matters, actually can matter a lot, and sometimes it doesn't. So here we go. So let's look at that for a second. So what is an average? An average is when all the numbers, when you add up all the numbers and then you divide that number by the number, let's say you have 7 numbers. That could be any numbers. 7 numbers. You add them up, there's a sum total, and then you divide it by 7 because there's 7 numbers. That's how you get the average. Now, hopefully, this is what we do. Sometimes we do that with test scores, right? So we have 32 students, and it's especially if you want to take the average, if most of the test scores are the same, and if you want to take, like, give everyone, you can come up with a scale that way. But if you want to see what the average score is, you can do that. Add up all the test scores, and you have 32, because you know the test runs from 0 to 100 to get an average of what the score is. But again, that really might not be really representative of how well people did, because if there are a couple people that have really bad scores, right? Let's say they have a 25 and a 35, and then all these students got 70s, 80s, and 90s, okay? That's going to bring that average down if you have a handful of people that got a bad test score, let's say it's 5 of them. It won't necessarily be representative of the class. You with me so far? This is why you want to interrogate these things. But if you take a median number, which looks at, if you were to write all those test scores down, right, from 0 to 100, and you have all the test scores, and then you look for the middle number, that actually might be more representative of what you think is like how well the class did. It actually might be more representative. Think about it, right? Can you visualize that for me? So you've got 0 down here, you've got 100 up here, and you have all these scores, a bunch of 90s, a bunch of 80s, a couple 70s, and then you have like 5 that are D's and F's. When you go to the middle, I bet you'll find that in the middle score, it's probably in like the low 80s, right? If you got 32 students. So that's what I want you to think of, how they use, whether it's mean, median. First, you have to know what it means. But second, you have to think, what's the best way to really get a good sample of, how people are doing in that class? That's what I would do, right? That would make sense to me. And then I get a real sense of what's happening there. Okay, mode, the number that is repeated the most in the list of numbers. This is another way you could look at it. So, in fact, with students, I have looked at it this way. I will look at, if I do a multiple choice quiz, and I've got 50 questions, and when I used to use these tests at the testing center at Fresno State, for example, and it would show like which questions most people got right and which questions people got wrong, but it would show, like, I could see if there was a score that was constant. That would really give me an idea of how people were learning. If most people got the same score, or if I had 32 students and let's say 20 of them all got 82s, that would tell me something. It would tell me, one, how they're learning, but it'd tell me maybe there's something that I need to do to help them learn better. Making sense? So when they say mean, median, and mode, you want to ask yourself, what does that mean? How are they using that? All right, we're going to go to the next, I believe it's number 5. And I'm going to stop here, and we're going to go to number 5 in the next lecture, and I'll be back, and I'll see you soon.